Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. However, wherever, whenever you're listening, this is the Root for Wisconsin Show, episode 161, coming at you from the Riverwood Gallery Studio in De Pere, Wisconsin. I'm host, producer Eric Fisher, the Big E. Joining me this week, the lone guest this week, we've got Dylan Trait. Dylan, how are you doing this week?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
Fantastic. Glad to be back. Did take a brief hiatus last week due to the Brewers and the MLB playoffs. Every night that we were going to record, Brewers were playing, and I thought, hey, maybe we'll get some content out of it. We'll record after they win a series or win a game or lose a series. And by then it was Friday. They played in just the second time that a wild card series, since it's happened in 2012, so 4 series a year, or 2022, excuse me. 4 series a year, 3 years of doing it. Only the second time that's gone all 3 games. And, well, we'll talk about that later in the show. However, before we do so, I do want to give a quick shout out to our friends, first of all over at Raging Pro Wrestling, RPW. 2 events coming up, little less than a month away. First, Friday night, November 1st, RPW Destiny 4, Big Apple Pub and Grill. Tickets available, very limited tickets still available. Looks like general admission only. Still available at rpwprowrestling.com or look sharp in the Fox River Mall. You're not going to want to miss out on that event. Loaded card, very timely card in the wrestling world as Ken Anderson and Zilla Fatu take a dream match, 15 years in the making, among many other matches on that card. Should be an absolute blast. You're not going to want to miss it. Also, RPW Envision 3, the following night, November 2nd, also at Big Apple Pub and Grill. Tickets available for that one as well, rpwprowrestling.com, as well as look sharp in the Fox River Mall. With that in mind, we get into what we had rooted for in the past week, and in Dylan's case, the past couple weeks. So, Dylan, why don't you start us off with what have you been rooting for as of late?
Oh, wow. Excuse me. Non-sports related, I have been rooting for this colder weather coming in. Those that know me know I don't like hot weather. I like cold weather. Waking up a couple mornings, it's been in the high 30s. When I get up at 4:30 a.m., I'm loving it. I like wearing sweatshirts and jackets over top. I like being made warm by nice, comfy clothes. So bugs are going away. It's about to be that perfect time of the year, which is fall. And if you disagree, you're wrong.
Yeah, weather-wise, I'm right there with you. I like being able to wear a sweatshirt, maybe even some sweatpants during the morning of the day. And, by the afternoon, if I'm, working from home, throwing some shorts on for the afternoon, we're all good with that. But, it's kind of nice to wake up a little chilly and either with a blanket in the morning or again, like you said, sweatshirt, whatever you got to do. It's definitely a great root for. Anything sports related as of late?
Yeah. Well, obviously, I was rooting for the Brewers. Still am, but though it's fruitless now. We'll talk about that later. Packers, of course, always Packers season. One of the most important streaks having to do with the Packers this year. We'll talk about that in a little bit as well. And the Milwaukee Bucks are starting to get back in action. NBA basketball is coming back around, though it's only preseason right now, but it's still NBA basketball. So, pretty stereotypical big three sports in Wisconsin. So.
Yeah, I'm gonna just echo that briefly. Baseball is what it is. Yes, Brewers no longer in contention, but playoff baseball really is one of the best things going right now. And you can pick up any game and just pick it up and enjoy it. I just turned on, as we're recording here, the Yankees and Royals, and the Royals just tied the ball game, bottom of the 5th inning, with a back-to-back RBI double and triple to tie the game up against the Yankees. That series is tied at 1-1. We'll talk about the National League here a little later in the show. But playoff baseball, yeah, great time. But also football across the board has really been, as it does across, really all of America, but really dominant in my life as well, whether it be Friday nights with high school teams around the area that I've been covering, or in this case, actually Thursday and Friday night this week, as well as college football on Saturdays, pro football on Sundays, Mondays, and Thursdays. It's really been great to be a fan of football this year. Really wild year for the NFL. Don't really know what's happening. And on the college game, too, a lot of upsets this past weekend, too. And really why football is one of the better sports just to sit around and watch all day. So, yeah, as a whole, really enjoying it. Also, do want to give a quick shout out to, obviously, a lot of people know all the work I do at the Packers or watching the Packers, whether it be through the fan or now fan-sided as well. But it is officially, I want to give a shout out to my brothers in pens, and in this case, actually keyboards, over at the Horizon Roundtable. College basketball season is just a couple weeks away. Green Bay has a fan event next week, and on the 24th they have the Green Bay men have their only exhibition game on the 24th. And quick spoiler alert, I'm sure we will have some Green Bay Phoenix content coming this season, as some changes have allowed us to be pretty hands-on with that. We'll have potential press access. It'll be a great time being around the Phoenix this coming winter. And anyway, as I was saying, Horizon Roundtable, it's preview week. So that started on Saturday for early access. And now as the week kind of goes on, we have our preseason awards, the individual team previews. My Green Bay Phoenix men's basketball preview came out earlier today. And as Twitter goes, I love the Green Bay fans who are always, reading the work and reposting it and sharing it with their fellow followings as well. It's been a couple weeks or a couple months actually since I heard from the Milwaukee. I'll call them fans as well. Milwaukee fans of mine who love to interact with the Twitter page, and heard from one of them today, so I'm glad they're okay. In a very, very diplomatic relationship that we have with them. Put my preview out. Hashtag Panthers in September says, shut up. Do want to say there's another user who came in who I've never had any interaction with before, said, keep crying. They said 9584, who's really crying? This other person said, why would I care? So yeah, it's a great time to be a Phoenix fan as well. So college basketball season coming down the line here as well. And like I said, very excited for potential content we'll have involving the Phoenix as well as we come closer. With that said, with the positives do come the negatives. And with that said, our Tyler Hero noogie or noogies of the week. Dylan, why don't you lead us off on this one?
Oh, geez. I admittedly, with all life stuff going on right now, I haven't been paying much attention to a lot of the negative stuff in the sports world. You could give one to the Brewers for losing their series, but it wasn't like they handed it to the Mets on a silver platter, so I don't want to give it
I've got a lot to say on that, so I'm going to tell you that you would be wrong to do so.
Yeah, that's what I'm.
A little teaser for that.
I don't think they're deserving of something. I guess I don't really have one this week. I haven't been able to be involved enough to see all the negatives. I'm sure you're going to say something. I'm going to go, oh yeah, I saw that. That's definitely worthy of a noogie. But off the top of my head, I don't really have anything. I'm sorry.
It's all good. I do have a couple. Shocker. Because as you know, I do get fired up pretty easily by things.
You do.
One, I'm going to say very irresponsible of the internet with the whole situation going on with the Jets right now, and always have something to say about Robert Saleh being fired and all the accusations being lofted towards one former Green Bay Packers quarterback's way, who is currently the Jets quarterback. I think it's kind of unwarranted in this situation. The fact of the matter is, he wasn't a great coach to start with. So, he'll latch on somewhere. He says he doesn't plan to get involved with another organization for the rest of the year, which obviously, given how the coaching trees and relationships work in the NFL, a lot of people were initially speculating that he might come to Green Bay as a defensive advisor or whatever they call him. So that was definitely one line of thinking for some people, but I'm not going to get into that. So I'm going to give a nugget to the people who are doing that, though. So that's number one. Number two, I'm going to go with Jesse Winker, former Brewers player who now is with the New York Mets. And really, for his sake, so he had a pretty big role in the Brewers-Mets series for the Mets, and I don't think anybody really had ill will towards him coming into the series. He was here for a season. He played 61 games. He wasn't very good, but it kind of was what it was. I mean, that happens in baseball. Guys get hurt, and to his, I guess, little bit of defense, he had an at bat in each postseason game last season, despite having just come off of injury. And he got booed pretty heavily in both those games, because I don't think he reached base in either one of them. But with that in mind, I don't necessarily think, given context that those boos were at him, I think it was on Craig Counsell for deciding to hit a guy who was hitting a $1.99 for the season in those moments, in very pivotal moments of those games when he just didn't have the at-bats all season. You had other guys on your bench that you probably could have gone to. So we all know he got pretty chippy during game one, which the Mets won, and then had his big blow-up moment in game three where he scores an insurance run at the end, and he slams the helmet down. And he's saying how much he hated Milwaukee, and he says even earlier this week how he'll never forgive Milwaukee. And it's like, for what? You sucked here. Like, that's not on us. You weren't healthy enough to really even play a third of a season. So, I guess that's not really on him either. I'll give him that. Baseball is very much a timing and rhythm sport. If you're not playing significantly and in a consistent role, you're going to struggle. That's the nature of the beast. When you're playing 61 games, it's not a shock that you're hitting a $1.99, $1.99 average. It's not a shock that you have career lows and home runs when you're only playing it ends up being like a third of the season, give or take. None of this is shocking. You didn't get paid a whole lot. You didn't get screwed over by any definition. You collected your paycheck all season, and at the end of the season, you were a free agent. You got let go. You made a name for yourself back in Washington. You got traded to a playoff organization. There's really nothing going on other than, again, getting booed in 2 postseason appearances last year that I don't even think was directly at you. But whatever. If that's the role he wants to go on, but
all power to him.
Pretty much. That's pretty much where I'm at with it. All the power to him. Do what you gotta do, man. But you're definitely coming off as a douche and not making it any better. Like, if you want to be a villain, fine. Like, be a villain, but to hold hatred in yourself for a city that I don't really think warrants it in this case, given everything that went on, I think you're mad at the wrong people. But that's just me. Anyway, I thought I had a third one. I'm sure I'll probably remember it as we go along here, but as of right now, that's pretty much the big one was Jesse Winker. He kind of stuck with me all week, and um, I guess I think if I'm going to go with a third one, just touching on how unpredictable fantasy football has been this year. It's been a bitch and a half because
My gosh, yeah.
literally anybody who's anybody has missed time and will have missed time this season, which that's the nature of the beast. But holy shit, is it just constant this year?
Yeah, the game. I was watching some of the. I got to actually watch some of the games this weekend. It was just crazy. I watched that. I watched a little bit of the prior week. I watched a little bit of the Georgia and Alabama game.
Which was a phenomenal college football game.
Wow.
And we didn't get a chance to talk about that because we didn't have an episode last week, but that is a prime example of kind of what I was referring to in the start of the show of how awesome football has been this year, not just for the Wisconsin teams or whatever, but across the board, instant classic of a game.
Yeah, that'll go down as one of the best college football games ever.
Easily.
And then Alabama the next week goes and pisses all over themselves against Vanderbilt. Like, what are we doing here?
Well, Vanderbilt, to their credit, they have a couple marquee wins. They also have a couple really bad losses.
Yeah.
I think this, say what you will about NIL and how crazy the landscape of college football is. I think this is you're finally starting to see at the college football level. We've seen it in basketball a little bit now, where these mid-major teams can kind of make a run or, make a deeper appearance in the NCAA tournament. You have so much fluctuation from mid-majors to Power Fives and Power Fives down to mid-majors, guys transferring to kind of have a get-right year and put some stuff on tape and whatever. We're finally seeing it in football, though. This really true, I think the perks of NIL of like, hey, any given Saturday, any team can win. And, with the expanded playoff now too, really can create some chaos here where it's not going to just be your conference champion getting a playoff bid. You're going to have at least probably 5 or 6, maybe 7 teams that either weren't conference champions or weren't even in the conference championship game that really can go and create, a spot in the playoff or push for a spot in that college football playoff, being one of those top 12 teams. And, maybe they get in, maybe they don't. I don't expect Vanderbilt to get in, but putting themselves in position with a couple marquee wins, and showing, Alabama's been vulnerable. Does a 2-loss Bama team get in if they lose? Say they face Georgia again in the SEC championship, or say, they have another hiccup along the way. Does a 2-loss Bama team get into an expanded college football playoff? We'll see. So,
yeah, they're in a position now where they have to take care of business. And if they don't, like you said, they're more than likely going to meet with Georgia again this year.
Yeah, overwhelming odds are you're correct.
And it's going to be really tough to beat that Georgia team twice. If anyone can do it, it probably is Alabama. But that doesn't mean it's going to be easy for them to do.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I said, though, we saw, I think it was 4 or 5 top 10 teams this week lose.
Yeah, Tennessee lost.
College football, weekend. We have a top 5 matchup within the Big Ten that is going to be one of those, again, must-see type games on Saturday night that NBC was lucky enough to grab a hold of. There's a top 15 matchup 9 versus 13 in the SEC. So there's some meaningful college football games, and with that expanded playoff, that makes some of these games have a little bit more meaning, a little bit more gravity to them, especially as some of these other schools across the board either win or they get upset against a team that maybe they shouldn't have and hurt their own playoff resume, some of these other games mean a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I am very glad NBC snagged that Ohio State Oregon game.
Yeah, that is going to be phenomenal football.
I will be glued
Saturday.
to my TV on that one for sure.
Absolutely. So, without further ado, we do have our Wisconsin web story of the week. I got to be honest, I was kind of, really searching for one here on the stories kind of going across. Do want to make kind of a follow-up on one thing, and that was the last episode we recorded was talked about the return of the Curter Burger at Culver's from October 1st to the 14th. Went and had one tonight, still holds up. So if you're a Curter Burger fan, you do have about a little less than a week to go get one while supplies last at Culver's. A couple other Wisconsin web story, or maybe one or two. Do want to have one here on a serious note that Wisconsin Public Service crews are now headed to Florida to help with hurricane aftermath, both with Milton and Helene. 25 WPS employees from Northeast Wisconsin and the Upper Peninsula are packed up to head south as of today. They are in a mutual aid agreement, according to WPS. So the quote from WPS spokesman Matt Cullen said, "Just as we have outside crews come here and help when we have severe thunderstorms and tornadoes here in Wisconsin, this is our opportunity to help provide assistance and help residents in communities that are expected to be impacted by Hurricane Milton." So more than 24 crew members all volunteered for the assignment. They packed up their trucks and will figure out what's going on. They will not be handed assignments until they arrive, but yeah, so 24 crews, or a little over 24 crews, are expected to arrive Thursday night from Wisconsin to go help out with those impacted by this crazy couple storms going on.
Yeah, shout out to those guys, because that's going to be a mess. I was actually watching it. Hurricane Milton just made landfall about probably 10 minutes ago. So it's going to be a mess down there. It's going to be a big mess down there. So shout out to those WPS guys for heading down there, and hope they make it back safe and sound.
Yeah, and without kind of goes without saying, but thoughts and prayers to all of those potentially impacted by these storms going on as well. On a lighter note, really, I mean, we're kind of in that season of Fall Fest and pumpkins and apples and kind of the last hurrah of the summer and fall season. So, kind of on a personal note, did hit Door County over the weekend, or 2 weekends ago. Great time. Went to Primal Eats up in Gillett over the weekend with my parents over the weekend. This weekend, Door County Fall Lighthouse Fest is underway. Or that might have even been last weekend. I do apologize. It looks like that was last weekend. But yeah, just it's kind of that time of year where there's so many different things going on across the communities, and be sure to check out your local calendars for all the cool stuff going on across the area.
Yeah, we're going to do our best to hit up some fall festivities, like the Little Farmer and some orchards over on the east side of Lake Winnebago. We're going to try to get up to Door County, and last year we were up there and we went and got some good wine and some good cheese. We're going to try to sneak back up there and get some of that stuff. And it's that time of the year where you can be outside for an extended period of time without breaking a sweat and being uncomfortable. So good times to be had by all.
Absolutely. All right, Dylan, without further ado, let's head into the world of sports. And begrudgingly, we will start with a final goodbye to the 2024 MLB season and the Milwaukee Brewers. The Brewers did lose their wild card series against the Mets, as we've kind of hinted at here throughout the show. Yeah, sometimes you just face a team that gets hot, and that's kind of what ended up happening. And Mets got through a best-of-5 series in 4 games now against the Phillies, who are one of the best teams in baseball season. Kind of is what it is, you know. There's nothing that you can really explain other than, you know, baseball is such a momentum sport, and you know how the calendar felt was kind of really weird. Where the Mets actually had to play 2 games on the Monday before the playoffs, so the Mets were actually in town for a 3-game set, Friday, Saturday, Sunday against the Brewers. Had to fly to Atlanta for a day-night doubleheader against the Braves to even qualify for the playoffs, and then back to Milwaukee for the best-of-3 series against the Brewers. And that could have been the end of them, or it ends up turning out that, hey, that was the galvanizing effort that they needed. And they are red hot right now.
Yeah.
Not to really, I mean, I don't think it should come as much of a surprise on the grand scheme of things. Considering of how, you know, how big their payroll is, and, you know, the amount of stars they do have within the organization. But you know, at the start of the season, had a very different expectation, and again, like I said, they got hot, and that happens. I will say I was pretty bummed last week, for those that know me and my love of this agonizing game that is designed to break your heart. And sure as shit, it did. And I give the Brewers credit. You know, they always find a different way and a unique way to go about just utterly destroying their fans. And this year was a unique one. This one, I think, I would say, ranks right up there with 2018 season. Granted, 2018, it was in the NLCS Game 7. So 1 game away from the World Series, where this one was literally the opening round of the playoffs. But yeah, this one hurt. This one, you know, it was a special team. At no point in the season did they ever lose more than 3 in a row, which is incredible. They were the only team in baseball to do that. I don't know, you know, how frequently that happens. I can't imagine it's very frequent. You know, almost every year you usually have a team that, you know, well, not every year. We'll usually have a team, but every team kind of goes through that. When you're playing 162 games, you're going to have spans where you lose 4, 5, 6, 7 in a row. It happens. Even the best teams in history, that happens. And for Milwaukee to not have done that and having such a young team, it really goes to show those that are in the front office and the minor league coaching staffs and scouting and really every piece of it knew what they were doing. And the trade acquisitions that they made at the deadline, Aaron Savale and Frankie Montas, and even Nick Mears had a couple moments here and there where, yeah, you know, looking back, I think they handled the trade deadline as well as they could have. I, you know, would have still probably liked to see a little bit more, but those guys outperformed in the biggest spots. And it really came down to games. You know, they lose game 1, backs against the wall. They rally for game 2 and get it done, go into game 3 with all the momentum. And they face Jose Quintana, who has had the Brewers number when he was with the Cubs, and still they took a 2-0 lead. And it was 2 guys that you wouldn't really count on home runs for doing it in the 7th inning, and Freddie Peralta comes on for the 8th. You did everything that you had to do on paper to get where you wanted to be. You had a 2-0 lead going in the 9th inning. Devin Williams, who is your closer, franchise guy, homegrown talent, he struggles at times, but he's also a former reliever of the year. I think he might have actually won that award twice now. You did everything right, and they had a big inning. His one bad outing of the year, and it happened in a space with so much finality to it. It sucks, but I don't think the Brewers choked. I don't think Pat Murphy was to blame for any of that at all. They got by a team that's red hot.
Yeah. Sometimes there's just nothing you can do, and they are clearly peaking exactly when you want to peak, the Mets, and yeah, I mean it happens all the time. You see it. I'd say you see this kind of stuff most often in college basketball with the Final Four tournament. You get a team that you wouldn't expect to even belong there, and they get hot, like NC State last year, 11 seed in the Final Four.
A team that should have lost to a Horizon League team.
Yeah, they should not have went as far as they did, but they got hot at the right time, and that's probably what we're seeing with the Mets. Now, obviously, it's a little bit different because you're playing a series rather than a one and done like in the NCAA tournament. But
for what it's worth, if it was just one and done, the Mets did win both game ones.
Right. Exactly. Right.
But yeah, it really is something incredible. I mean, you talked about a streak that has important meaning. The Mets having now won their series against the Phillies in 4 games are potentially 4 wins away from continuing a streak that will continue to haunt Brewers fans, where every team that has ever eliminated the Brewers in the World Series or in playoffs has gone in the World Series, and in, I think, half the instances have won the World Series. It's quite impressive, and it is something that God, I don't even know what I want to happen. Like, do I want to see it come to an end? Obviously, yes, because I want to win the World Series as a Brewers fan, but at the same time, it's almost impressive, like it's such a middle finger of a stat, and again, true coincidence, but it's such a middle finger of a coincidence that it almost feels on purpose,
Mm-hmm.
And I guess it's something to hold on to. I really hate that it is what it is, but I don't know. I'm getting real fucking sick of this. I'll say it.
It sounds like it.
Well, it's just, honestly, I mean, in a 3-game series, and there's some people who went and bashed the fact that that it's a 3-game series and it's a 5-game series, and it's World Series and the NLCS are both 7, which any league that has series as their base. I mean, it's the NBA, and you'll get like tournament style stuff, but in leagues or NHL too, in these leagues that have those series bases, it's almost always a best of 7. I mean, that's really, I think, the best way to determine who the better team in a series is. I think a 3-game set, anything can happen. You have to have a bad 24. If you have a bad 24 hours, you're done. And we saw it happen again this year, where in the American League, both underdog teams won, or both road teams, because of how they set the series up. The Mets won with the Brewers, so only one higher seed ended up winning in the playoffs this year in that opening round.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And with that, it's kind of one of those things where I find it, I think the NBA actually has it probably right, where I think most years you find the team that is the best team, barring injury, wins the championship because of that 7-game setup. And I think baseball usually gets it pretty close. I think usually the 2 best teams do face each other. But we saw it last year with the Diamondbacks, kind of the same thing. Team gets hot, that final couple weeks of the season and they just ride that momentum. I mean, obviously they're in a position where they're good enough to get there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't have an answer on that.
No, it's just easier to not think about it because it's just going to keep pissing you off.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the other side of that coin too. It's just one year or another. I hope that they have it happen, and I guess it wasn't supposed to be this year, and we move on. I do want to touch on one other thing of the Brewers radio broadcast. I don't know if you've come across it on any social media, but the sign off from Jeff Levering had some extra gravity to it at the end. And, it's kind of one of those situations where, kind of not addressing the elephant in the room, but the elephant in the room is the fact that Brewers legend Bob Uecker is 90 years old. And, he's not a spring chicken. Obviously, I think that you would want to have, the dream, obviously, on top of winning the World Series, that's the ultimate goal. But I think for Brewers fans, it means just a little bit more if you can get Bob Uecker to be in a World Series calling for the Brewers, right? Like, the guy is a home guy. He's been around the organization for, I think 65 of his 90 years on this planet, in some shape or form. So I think that kind of carries extra gravity. And, some of the guys in the clubhouse, I think Yelich had mentioned that Uecker was the first one to talk to Devin Williams after the blown save. And, he had a one-on-one conversation with Yelly. And all that kind of goes with that. And, he said, they had said that he was saying, see you next year, see you next spring to all these guys. But when you look at what Levering said, like I said, it really had some gravity to it where for the first time in a lot of people's lifetime, there's a possibility next spring we might be without Bob Uecker behind the microphone, whether it be retirement or, the other thing. I don't want to speak that into existence.
No,
but
bad juju.
But I mean, that's just kind of the nature of the thing. You get a guy who's so close and means so much to the team, the fans, the players, the organization as a whole. It sucks that maybe it was his last season and he just hasn't formally announced retirement, and he's definitely earned it if he would like to, but it's also that much more heartbreaking if that's the case, where you've had a span here since 2018 where you've been so close a couple times and just couldn't quite get over the hump, and only one team can win it. And baseball is that sport that I think breaks your heart even more. Everybody's a fan of their own sport more than others. For you, it's basketball. For others, it's football.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it's baseball, because there's thousands of old, there's video clips of the I think Vin Scully reads it and talking about how baseball is designed to break your heart. It's the sport that brings with it the promise of summer and spring and all the romantics that come with that. But on top of that, it's also kind of that one of those first sports you play with your you play catch with your dad and you go to Little League, and it's there for you all summer. You get off of school, or you're just you have afternoons, evenings meant to watch watch baseball, and it's really the perfect summer game, and then it's gone.
Yeah, know the feeling.
But yeah, it's this was a rough one. So I guess on to 2025 and seeing what this young group can band together for another season of Figuring out how the hell they're going to piss us off next year.
Hopefully not, but time will tell, won't it?
By the way, in my ranting and whatnot, I just remembered my other noogie that I had. And so I'm gonna rewind here. And this does involve both sports and entertainment and Wisconsin. And that is, I'm gonna give a third noogie to FX, the television network.
Okay.
Dylan, I don't know how much you or any of our other listeners are fans of like the American history stories and American horror stories and now just the American sports stories. This one spotlighting Aaron Hernandez. And I have been watching it every week for, I think this is 6 weeks now, or 5 or 6 weeks.
Oh wow.
And it's the hour-long show, and it's a dramatization of Hernandez's rise and then downfall. But God, is it bad? It's so good, but it's so bad. We saw the crime stories with I think obviously the one that gets the most attention was the first one with OJ, and the star-studded cast that it had. It had like David Schwimmer was playing Rob Kardashian, and who's the other? Who's the Scientology? John Travolta was Bob Shapiro, and Cuba Gooding Jr. was OJ, and star-studded cast, right?
Right.
And as it's kind of gone on, they've had some of that luster, but it's also kind of gone more towards the American Horror Story side of it, where it's a lot of unknown actors playing these bigger parts, and again, it's very dramatized. But this episode, it came out last night. It almost jumped the shark for me of being too stupid.
Okay.
In the sense that the casting and some of the stuff that they have these characters doing is just so outlandishly stupid.
Okay.
So in last week's episode, I should say, ends with draft day and Aaron Hernandez getting drafted by the Patriots and Bill Belichick being like, "Oh, well, he's a first round talent, and he's sitting here in day 3, and maybe we'll grab him because he's had these off field issues, and if he doesn't work out, we don't really invest that much in him, so F it." Which brings me to this week's episode. One of the first scenes is Hernandez at the rookie symposium and kind of going through the thing like that, and he makes a joke and finds out like, oh yeah, well, people are always going to be trying to piss you off and get you, potentially in legal trouble, and you got to keep your head above water and all that stuff. And then shows his like first day with the Patriots, which is incredibly wild to me because in theory he should have had, they had rookie minicamp, then they had OTAs, they had all this stuff going on, and they just start the beginning of training camp, and it's Rob Gronkowski's character coming up to him and like, "Hey, I'm Gronk." He's I know real life Rob Gronkowski's kind of a dorky dude, but this guy, first of all, the casting of him, he's this chubby weirdo that they put on this obnoxiously fake voice to try to be Gronk. Looks like a Walmart version of the guy. And yeah, it really is something on that. Well, then Belichick comes through, and I think he had something to say about, he's like, "Hey, 85, which is the number Hernandez wore his first season because Randy Moss was still there wearing 81. He says, "Hey," he said something about like, get your shit together or something like that, and goes into his office, which then proceeds to have the moment that almost made me turn it off today. Where Belichick goes in his office and then immediately starts playing like on his like speaker in his office starts playing a Bon Jovi song and like lip syncing and banging the drums and playing along with it. I'm like, what the F is this?
Yeah, that seems relatively interesting.
I mean, it's good. It's good, but it's also I don't know.
I can see the what the heck is going on here aspect that you're talking
yeah,
about.
it's almost so bad that it's good. Like you have to watch.
Oh, it's like staring at the sun. Like it hurts you, but you want to do it.
I mean, I'd say more like a car accident, like you don't want to watch, but you can't look away. But yeah, either way, it's exactly like I mean, like I said, it was just so bad. But it's also like, well, I'm very curious how they're going to start handling things because he's this last episode ends with his first NFL concussion, which, as we all know, he had CTE and a number of other things kind of going on, drug use, sexuality, stuff, all that kind of allegedly led him to allegedly murder at least one person, allegedly, potentially more.
Allegedly.
Well, technically speaking, he has never been convicted because of a weird Massachusetts law, which actually I think for the Odin Lloyd murder did end up getting put back in. Like the law got struck because of Aaron Hernandez, where if you die during your appeal, it's technically the conviction's technically thrown out.
Interesting.
Yeah, it really was a weird law, and I'm curious how we're going to get there, and how the show is going to depict what happened. So we've kind of started to see, we know, again, historically speaking, he got in a couple fights at Florida. He had some off the field stuff when he was in college that led his draft stock to fall. But
yeah, you have to keep us updated on a weekly basis here.
So the sports connection, obviously the entertainment, but the Wisconsin tie is the character who is cast to play Tom Brady is from, I believe, from Wausau.
Cool. What a way to tie that in.
Also, not great casting on that one either. Every single character looks like a cartoon version of that character.
I feel like you could have just asked Tom Brady to do it.
Well, that's the thing that bothers me the most about this. Like, Belichick, whatever, but Gronk and Tom Brady work for Fox.
Yeah.
Like, that's the part that I just can't get past. Gronk and Brady work for Fox, and yeah, it's FX, which is owned by Fox and the whole thing, but that's the same family of entertainment.
They could have swung it.
Hey, why don't you pop down here, and we'll throw some CGI on you to de-age you a little bit, but why don't you pop down here, and we'll figure this bad boy out, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Patrick Schwarzenegger, the son of Arnold Schwarzenegger, was cast as Tim Tebow.
Sweet.
Which that was odd because it actually kind of worked, but also again, having the OJ one, whatever. Like some of the character, like they show the side by side of the picture versus the person, and it's like, I can see that one, and other ones it's like, that one you kind of take a leap on casting here. But for at least for our sake, those guys, everything in that case was before we were born or could really even remember. This one is stuff that we were alive for, and like with it, you know what I mean? Like we should very much know what these people look like, and it was recent enough where even the non sports fans would know what these two guys or most of these guys look like.
Right.
And yeah, it's something. So anyway, yeah, it's Ross. The heck's his name? It's Ross Georgie, something like that. From Wausau East is playing Tom Brady. So 2008 grad of Wausau East. So that's your Wisconsin tie in there. That's our other Wisconsin web story of the week / my other noogie of, again, how bad the casting is on this.
Hey, they're all having fun.
I hope for their sake that they are. But anyway, back to sports and actual sports going on, not fictionalized sport or dramatized sports, not fictionalized. We move on to the world of football, starting with the Wisconsin Badgers, which got a much-needed win over the weekend. Massive 52-7 win against or 52-6 win, excuse me, against Purdue. Braden Locke, 359 yards, 3 touchdowns in the game. Tawe Walker taking over as the lead back. He had 19 carries for 94 yards, 3 touchdowns with a long of 17. And then Cade Yakimelli, 5 carries, 39 yards, and a score as well. Big game for Trech Kekahuna. 6 catches, 134 yards, 2 touchdowns with a long of 69 yards. Vinny Anthony,
Nice.
2 catches, 66 yards, and a touchdown. I will say the Badgers should have won this game. They were a 12-point favorite going into the game. But for the first time under Luke Fickell, they finally kind of had that air raid, the dairy raid offense that actually kind of came to fruition. And yes, Purdue is terrible this year. They're 1-4 after this game, but you can only play who's on your schedule, and you kind of have to use those games to actually build and get right. They weren't doing this against Western Michigan and South Dakota. They did it against a Big Ten opponent,
Right.
which is very encouraging. So I didn't get to see much of that game, but it was one of those where I think really the second half was so huge because was running errands Saturday, early morning or early afternoon, late morning, and it was 14-0 at the end of the first quarter. It was 21-6 at halftime, and then drove from Green Bay to Gillette to go see my parents and whatnot, and picked my phone up and I'm like, holy shit, they scored 21 points in the third quarter. So would love to see more of that. Badgers do have Rutgers, a road trip to the New Jersey area, with the coast to coast conference, the Big Ten. Badgers, 2 of their first 3 Big Ten games of the year, they go USC, home at Wisconsin, then out to the East Coast. They are currently a 2.5-point underdog. And but that kind of works out in their favor, in the sense that typically the home team gets 3. So
Right.
Badgers by 0.5 point would be the kind of line of thinking as of right now going into Saturday. That game's at 11 o'clock Saturday morning. Kind of excited. I might get to watch this one. Got some family stuff going on, but Badger football. Going on. So, anyway, we've got the Packers. Also, they got a win this week, a much needed win. And the Packers, they win this week 24-19 against the Los Angeles Rams. And, some highs and lows of this game. Jordan Love had one of the best throws I've ever seen, coupled with one of the worst throws I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
It really is pretty shocking. That swing in events that we saw throughout the first half Sunday. But the second half Sunday, I think, reminded people why Jordan Love is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL and why the Packers paid him to be so.
Mm-hmm.
Really, I mean, it was a back and forth game, but was a lot of fun.
Yes, I did. I did watch the entire first half. I missed a little bit of the third quarter, but I did get to watch it finish up. So it was good. I enjoyed it. I thought there were moments. It was a roller coaster ride, but for the most part, I do believe the roller coaster was going up.
Is that really the way that you would want a roller coaster to be?
No, not for the intents and purposes of a roller coaster, but in this metaphor, yes. No, I thought it was. It's not like the Rams are a bad team by any means. They're a solid team, and I thought Green Bay put it together well. I really did. I was impressed with the run game. I was impressed with Jordan Love for the most part. I thought the defense played above average, I would say, for them. Made some big plays. Obviously, the most important streak we have in Green Bay right now. Xavier McKinney got his fifth consecutive game with an interception. Maybe not the most important streak, but that's what I was going to talk about earlier.
I figured.
I think a lot of us Green Bay fans are holding on to that one, hoping for number 6 this week. But it's a complete win. It was a complete win. Were they firing on all cylinders? I don't think you could necessarily say so, but a win's a win.
Yeah, the Rams are better than their 1-4 record indicates. I mean, it's in the season yet. About 25% of the way through the season. But with that in mind, I mean they've been decimated by injury as well. I'll say, the roller coaster of the Green Bay Packers. I mean, again, you get that bomb throw by Love to Reed, and Reed makes the perfect adjustment on it and just snags it between three people. Insane throw with precision and incredible focus to bring it down. The pick six was, again, one of the worst decisions I have seen in quite some time.
Certainly an unlucky play.
I get why it happened. I mean, you don't want to necessarily have the 2-point safety and give them the ball, but it beat 6 because the Rams are missing their extra point there. So I get why it happened, but I don't know. Defensively, technically speaking, they only allow 12 points, so can't be too mad about that.
No, not at all.
Xavier McKinney got the interception and the fumble recovery. Sprung free by Kingsley Enagbare, which also set up then a Tucker Kraft touchdown. But I think a couple things that kind of stood out to this game for me. First and foremost, it's how much of an impact is Jair Alexander really making on this defense where, we've seen it 2 straight weeks now of, the Packers defense and kind of the pro-style quarterback, and this is what's kind of confused me the most about the last 2 weeks. We saw them lose to the Vikings last week. We saw them obviously beat the Rams this past week. But two more pro-style quarterbacks compared to the first three they saw. Levis kind of is closer to, I guess, to a pro style than a running quarterback with like week 1 against Jalen Hurts, week 2 in Anthony Richardson. But I think it's odd of how much more aggressive Green Bay was against the running quarterback than the pocket quarterback. Like Sam Darnold, like in this case, Matthew Stafford, where we saw a lot more zone this last week, and I'm really curious on if that's truly just the impact that Jair Alexander has, where because of his presence, they can match up with Stokes playing in man or Carrington Valentine playing in man, which he was available, but I don't think he played a whole lot this past weekend in his first game back off injury. So without Jair Alexander, the Packers had to go to an odd combination where they had Keyshawn Nixon playing out wide, which is never good. He should be in the slot exclusively. They had to move Javon Bullard into the slot, which I think he played really well in that slot corner spot. And then they had Evan Williams, who ended up getting the forcing the incompletion on fourth down to end the ball game. Essentially, I mean, they had a kneel down, but Williams goes and defends that pass, and really, I mean, he continues to play very well. Both safeties, both Bullard and Williams, have played incredibly well as rookie safeties. Obviously, they're overshadowed by Xavier McKinney right now. But I really wonder what goes into that game plan defensively, simply because Jair Alexander is not there to play that man-style defense that Hafley wants to come out and execute. So that was my biggest takeaway defensively, outside of obviously McKinney gets another pick, which 3 in a row is incredible. 4 in a row is incredibly unlikely. It's awesome to see. 5 in a row, never been done since the merger in 1970. Especially when you factor in it's his first 5 games with a new team. So really, all in all, from a Packers standpoint, defensively, can't really complain. Offensively, I think a lot of that is kind of finding their footing. Jordan Love's still trying to learn how to play within his injury and play a little banged up. And the Rams, to their credit, blitzed him on, I think, 52 or 53% of his dropbacks, which we saw early on that rust kind of impact them and trying to figure out what they're going to do. Before they start they ended up going to more motion, and they ended up going to some designed bootlegs to get him out of the pocket a little bit and on the move so that he can kind of work with the moving pocket. So I like to see those in-game adjustments. I think one other really important thing the Packers had working in their favor, only 6 penalties this past week, which is cut in half over the last, I think, each of the last 2 or 3 weeks. So kind of keeping those under control does help out as well. But they did something they've struggled to do with Matt LaFleur. They went and got a road win out in California on the West Coast. Hasn't been easy for them to do under Matt LaFleur, so they went and did it. They return home to Lambeau this weekend for a game against the Cardinals, in which they are currently a 5.5-point favorite. That's actually gone up, or actually come down. It was 5.5. They're currently at 5 points, with how betting money has kind of come in. But regardless, pretty heavy favorite against a struggling Cardinals team that comes in at 2-3. Romeo Doubs comes back after his brief hiatus of being unhappy and missing practice. Christian Watson practiced today as well. I believe he was limited in practice, but regardless, that is a pretty big update there. If you can get your two top receivers to go along with Jaden Reed, go along with Dontavian Wicks, and not have to rely on either Bo Melton or Malik Heath to be your second and third guys.
Yeah,
and obviously the emergence of Tucker Kraft has been phenomenal.
Oh gosh, yeah, it's been awesome to watch. You just my biggest hope for next week is that Jordan Love has got enough time to obviously the extent of his injury is not nearly as bad as they thought, or he wouldn't be in the game. I'm in the boat of that he should not have played against the Vikings. That's just my personal opinion. I think he looked like he was really struggling. Obviously, he did not have a good game. Though I do think Green Bay did have opportunities to win that game, but I don't think he should have played, especially because they didn't play that poorly with Willis behind center. So I think they could have competed against the Vikings. Maybe they still wouldn't have won, but they would have competed and not risked him. I think he got lucky not getting hurt. Even worse. These last two games, obviously he looked a lot better last week against Los Angeles. So not really complaining there, but hopefully he's ready to bounce back and get back to his old self. And then obviously with his two top weapons coming back, maybe they did practice. I mean, we could see some cool stuff on the offense here.
Watson, actually only one player not practicing today, which Wednesday is the first day of injury report. Devontae Wyatt was the only non-participant. Christian Watson, Carrington Valentine were both limited. Zach Tom, full participant. Luke Musgrave, limited. Aaron Mosby, full practice. Jordan Morgan, Elton Jenkins, Jonathan Ford, Edgerrin Cooper, Kenny Clark, all limited. Zane Anderson was a full practice, and Jerry Alexander also a full practice.
That's good to hear.
Practice, excuse me. So still quite a ways out from being game ready. As any team is on Wednesday, you're kind of battling bruises and scrapes and bumps and bruises and all that, but very encouraging that a lot of these guys did go on that first day of practice, even in some capacity.
Yep. Agreed.
So, I do disagree with you. I do think Jordan Love was in a position that I'm glad he did play against Minnesota. Obviously there is the re-injury risk with a sprain like that. But I think when you get a divisional opponent like that and a team that came in undefeated still is undefeated, you got to do what you can do to win those games. And despite him not playing his best game, yeah, he had the 3 interceptions. Only I'd say one of them was his fault. 2 of them just got bad bounces. Still count, but I mean, it doesn't really count the same way in my book. So 2 bad bounces doesn't hurt. They still only lose by 2, with 2 missed field goals as well. So
yeah, I mean, I totally get why he played. Like, don't get me wrong there. I just think it seemed rushed to me, especially with how he was moving. He was obviously favoring his other leg and really trying to protect that injured knee. And at that point, if it's still affecting the way he's playing, I would just say, just sit him. I mean, again, I get why he played. It's a big game. It's a game it's a game we want to win. But you ask him, he's going to say, yeah, man, I'm ready. Put me in. But you look at it from a management standpoint, it's like you're risking your franchise quarterback losing him for the year if he takes another hit the wrong way, if he's not healed up yet. So I personally would have rather seen him sit and heal to just
I think when you factor in how close he was to actually probably playing against Tennessee though too the week before,
that's very true. Yeah,
it's kind of one of those injuries that the reality is, as most injuries in the football season go, you're not going to be fully healed until after the season. So you kind of have to figure it out on the fly. A sprain, even in a ligament like that, it's rest, ice, compression, elevation, and kind of getting your body as good as it can be. So I think with that in mind, I think if he was as close to as we believe he was, even in the first week against the Colts, where it was a possibility up until Saturday, he's, quote unquote, game time decision, which is really, like 2-3 hours before the game, but was super close against the Titans. When you only had the one game, you kind of have to have those preseason games, so I guess, or preseason, to kind of get back into your flow of the offense. And we really saw that kind of come through in the second half against against the Rams, and even against the Vikings for that matter. It was the second half of the game where it kind of got his legs under him a little bit, and they kind of, again, worked within the offense to really make it work for him. So I would like to see that continue and really kind of hit that stride this week, where you've had the 2 games to kind of get under your belt, but kind of get back to business as usual this week, or as business as usual as you can be with a sprained MCL.
Yes. Yep.
All right, Dylan. Well, with that in mind, we do want to give a couple updates here. First, to our Root for Wisconsin Fantasy Football League. Fantasy football, like I said, has been a bitch and a half this season to play and guess what's happening, and waiver wires have been crazy and everything that goes with it. So for the 10 people who even remotely care about our Root for Wisconsin podcast league, do want to go through our standings and our update from this past week. So our week 5 scoreboard goes as follows. Team Dahl, Justin Dahl took me down this week, 113.1 to 102.7. Tyson takes down Sean, 121.12 to 95.404. The Lambo Chef, Zach Ledubik, takes down Ramsey in the Barn Burner of the Week, 149.36 to 141.94. Team Torrentor takes down Tribal Chief, Jordan Fifield, 109.64 to 102.8. The highest score of the week was David Muller, 174.88, takes down Mark, 136.48. And then our own Secretary Shauna gets a pretty big win in the Western standings. She wins 130.82 to over Jordan Fields in a 103.26. Week 6 matchups goes as follows. David Muller takes on Sean All In versus Cut My Life Into Pieces. Easy Breezy Beautiful Shauna goes against Only Ram 5. So Shauna versus Ramsey. Jordan Fields versus Zach Ledubek. Kittles and Bits versus the Lambo Chef. We have Mark taking on Tyson Kickin' Butker versus the U Hala Hala. Team Tornator versus Team Dahl, or Tony Tornator team versus Justin Dahl. And then myself taking on Jordan Fifield, Commish Fish versus the Tribal Chief. Our standings through 5 weeks in the Eastern Conference. Team Dahl at a surprising 4-1. Ramsey and Ledubek at 3-2. Myself and Tyson at 2-3, and Sean at 1-4. In the West Coast standings, Shauna and David Muller at 4-1, Mark and Jordan Fields at 3-2, Tony Tornator at 1-4, and Jordan Fifield at a miserable 0-5.
Oh,
so
that hurts.
That does hurt. So hopefully, I don't want to do the jinx or whatever, but I'm really hoping that that Fife can't get a win this week either. So. We also do have our picks for the week, Dylan, and I know it's been a couple weeks since you've picked games, but we're going to do this here.
Yeah, let's do it.
And just as a reminder, we decided this season to just go with outright winners as opposed to going with spreads, which drives me crazy, but is neither here nor there. So on Thursday Night Football tomorrow night, we've got the San Francisco 49ers coming in at 2-3, taking on the 3-2 Seattle Seahawks in Seattle. I wish it would tell me what the spreads on these were, but I'll let you pick first in this one.
Too much drama going on with San Francisco right now. I'm going Seattle.
I'm going to go with the Niners. I think they're kind of figuring things out, and I think they really have to figure things out here in the upcoming weeks as they're at 2-3 and really need a win. So I think this is their week. All right, going to Sunday. Going to be a long Sunday of football as we do have another London game this week. We have the 1-4 Jacksonville Jaguars taking on the 3-2 Chicago Bears.
I'm not picking the Bears. Nope. I won't do it. Even though it makes the most sense, because I do think they're going to win that game, I'm not doing it. Nope.
You're really going to go with your fandom over potential rankings in this situation?
Yes.
Well, I am going to pick the Bears. The Jaguars, did get their first win of the season this past weekend. So maybe they're kind of figuring some things out. It was against the lowly Colts, but a win is a win. And Dylan, did you know, like I said, until tonight, I didn't really realize the Bears were 3-2. Every team in the NFC North comes in with a winning record in this week.
Yeah, it's very quiet. They're very quiet 3-2. Caleb Williams is starting to have some good games, which
I will say the schedule could not have been better suited for the Bears to go 3-2.
Yeah,
The Titans, the Colts, the Rams, and the Panthers. The Colts actually did the Bears, and then the Texans also beating the Bears. But those 3 wins, the Titans, the Rams, who are banged up as all get out, and the Panthers, 3 games that very much should have been winnable across the board. And hey, they went out and won them, so for them. All right, back to picks for the week. In probably the ugliest game of the weekend, one that I would not want to put any money on. We've got the Colts and the Titans in an AFC South matchup.
Oh, I'm going to have to go with Indianapolis.
I'm also going with the Colts, but again, I would not, if I didn't have to, I would not touch this game by any stretch of the imagination. This is going to be ugly. The Titans are 2.5-point favorite at home, so again, really it's the Colts. Really a true toss-up. Yeah, I'm not going anywhere near that game if I'm wagering.
No, don't touch that with a 10-foot pole.
All right, we've got the 4-1 Houston Texans taking on the 1-4 New England Patriots.
I'm going to go Houston on that one.
I am also going Houston. We've got a really good battle, a very good football game in the NFC South. Tampa Bay taking on the Saints. The Saints will likely be without Derek Carr, as I believe it was announced today. Spencer Rattler will be their starter.
Mm-hmm.
For that reason, I am going to go with the Bucs.
I think I am going to agree with you. In fact, yes, I am going to agree with you.
Another potential ugly game. The 1-4 Cleveland Browns travel to Philadelphia, take on the 2-2 Eagles.
Disappointing season for the Eagles so far. I mean, they played so well against Green Bay, but they'd be 1-3 right now had Green Bay pulled that game out. Still, I'm going to pick the Eagles. I think they're going to bounce back, and hopefully they.
Let's say there's two factors to this. One, The Eagles have been without their top two receivers due to injury, so there is that factor.
Yep.
The other factor to it is that Deshaun Watson is probably the worst quarterback in the NFL right now. And the fact
he's up there.
that the Browns are paying him $172 million for the next 3 years.
Yeah, not the best move from the management standpoint.
Really could not be worse. I think, and I don't want to make light of this, but I saw a TikTok on it, so I'm going to reference a TikTok, that Deshaun Watson has more settled lawsuits than he does touchdowns right now.
Yeah, I did see that too, and that is hilarious.
It is. It's all, I don't want to make light of what he's accused of. Obviously, if that's what it was happening.
No, not at all. It's just it puts in perspective how poor of a quarterback he has been this year, or with his tenure with the Browns, I should say.
Yeah. So I think anybody could play the Browns and win right now. I'm not saying I would put them in the category of, a college team could, because I'm not that dumb.
I was just going to say that, but no, obviously not.
Yeah, he is like historically bad right now too. There was another podcast, I think it was one of the Barstool PMT, pardon my take, went through the Browns like historical quarterback jersey, like where they had like it was like the quarterback and then they have name and then tape it down all the way down, of how many of those guys that you would rather have at their average season versus what Deshaun Watson's doing right now. And I think they came up with, there's only two. I think it was Josh Rosen and maybe Brandon Whedon. They would rather have Deshaun Watson playing over, and that includes Johnny Manziel at peak Manziel, going to Florida with a fake mustache, or going to Vegas with a fake mustache. Would rather have that than Deshaun Watson right now. Anyway, next game, we've got the Commanders, who are coming in at a very shocking 4-1, versus the Baltimore Ravens at 3-2. That game is in Baltimore.
I'm gonna take Baltimore.
I'm also taking Baltimore. This one has potential to be a great game.
It really does.
Are a 6.5 point favorite, which I feel like might be too much. But this might be one of those kind of come back to earth moments for Washington as well. I wouldn't be shocked though if they come out and play incredibly well. Their defense has been great. Jaden Daniels has looked the part of a first-round quarterback. I would not be surprised to see Washington close with that game and make that really something that we remember as we talk about this next week. So we do have an AFC West matchup. We've got the Chargers and the Broncos. Another one of those games I'm probably not touching if I'm looking to put money on it. The Broncos are a true 3-point favorite at home. So again, by old standard, truly a toss-up. I think I'm going to go with the Broncos. I think with how Justin Herbert still isn't fully healthy, I don't think he's going to be able to withstand the Broncos defense of what they're doing this season. So I'm going Broncos.
I think I'm going to go Broncos as well.
All right. We get into our last game of the noon slate. Cardinals, Packers.
Packers.
Yeah, I'm going Green Bay as well. Not even really much discussion there. I think Kyler Murray, I'm not saying Xavier McKinney is going to get pick number 6 or a pick 6, but I think this is going to be one of the better defenses Kyler Murray's faced this season. Marvin Harrison Jr. might have a good game. He's been fun to watch, but yeah, not going to be the surefire thing for this week.
Yep, I'd agree.
We've got Steelers Raiders going on in the 3 o'clock game. Raiders are a mess right now. Lots of drama. Whole Devontae situation likely not going to play. Steelers coming in at 3-2. I'm going to go with the Steelers.
I concur.
All right. In the prime time or prime afternoon slot, what's likely going to be Fox's NFL America's Game of the Week, Lions Cowboys 3:25 kick in Jerry World in Dallas. That game.
Cowboys Game of the Week.
Cowboys are a 3-point favorite, so really, again, kind of a true toss-up. I'll go first in this one. I'm going to go with the Cowboys. I think coming off a bye week does usually serve Detroit well. But Dallas has played Detroit really tight. And I think in the games that Detroit has lost under Dan Campbell, Dallas has kind of been one of those games where they've kind of written the script on how to beat them. Mm-hmm. And I didn't realize how pedestrian of a season Jared Goff was having this far. They did have the bye week last week, but through those first 4 games, only 5 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. He was perfect as a thrower against the Seahawks in his week 4 game. He was 18 of 18 with a touchdown, but yeah, real pedestrian, and if this gets into a shootout, which it very well could, give me the Cowboys offense.
I'm gonna go with Detroit. It's like you said, it's probably more favored toward the Cowboys than what the spread is saying. But at the same time, the Cowboys and the Bears are kind of in that same tier list for me, which I hate them, and I will never pick them.
Fair enough. All right, 325 game. We've got the Atlanta Falcons taking on the Carolina Panthers.
Oh, the Falcons.
Yeah, give me
Kirk Cousins.
Cole's Cash Chains.
That's right.
Sunday Night Football, Bengals Giants, and this is going to be a disgusting game as well.
That is. Wow.
Give me the Bengals, though. They lost to the Ravens last week, but they looked good doing so. The offense seems like it's probably back at its healthiest clip since the 2022 season, where they really were firing on all cylinders. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, give me the Bengals in this one.
Yeah, I'm going with them as well.
All right, then Monday Night Football. This is a bit of a toss-up. This game probably closer than it should be. Bills Jets, where the Jets are a 2.5-point dog at home, so really ends up again kind of being like a touchdown, kind of separating the two, like a 6-point game.
Yeah,
but Bills Jets Monday Night Football. After Robert Saleh was fired, we usually see that quote unquote bounce back week after a coach has been fired in a season, like in season. I don't know what the exact number of the record of the team after that happens, but it typically trends towards the team that got their coach fired. Mm-hmm. Although it also happens more towards the end of the season, not week 6, but that's right. Neither here nor there. Give me the Bills, but I think Aaron Rodgers in the offense is actually going to play pretty well.
I think I am going to reluctantly pick the Jets. Very reluctantly. Make sure you put that in there. I reluctantly pick the Jets.
That's fair. I'm very torn on this one. I think I'm gonna reluctantly pick the Bills. I think I should. I think this is kind of one of those exception games because I think there's more problems within New York with the culture, but I also think they're better than 2-3.
I agree. I really do.
All right. Well, with all that said, we wrap up the episode with what we are rooting for. But before we do that, we do have our Ticket Smarter Ticket of the Week. Use code ROOTS10, ROOTS number 10, $10 off of every order on Ticket Smarter. Ticket Smarter Ticket of the Week, Dylan. We're gonna go with the Rush Center's stand-up comedian Theo Vaughn. Love him or hate him. He is a viral sensation, and he's always going to say something that probably will make you it'll make you react. I don't know. I'm not sure if it'll make everybody laugh. He's a very niche comic for a lot of people.
Uh-huh.
But tickets are available through Ticket Smarter. You can use code ROOTS10, get $10 off that ticket order. Some restrictions may apply. So, Dylan, with that said, what are you rooting for in the upcoming week of life and sports? You don't have to do both, but what do you got going on?
I'm very excited. I believe Giannis is going to be playing tomorrow. Bucks host the Lakers in some pre-season action. I always like these matchups. Giannis and LeBron are obviously my two favorite players in the league, so I like it when they go up against each other. Try to catch as much of that game as I can. Obviously, Giannis did not play in the first preseason matchup with the Pistons. It's always, I just have so much fun watching him play. He's just such a phenomenal basketball player. So definitely rooting for the Bucks. I'm super excited for Bucks basketball to be back. So, as far as life goes,
you don't gotta let in too much if you don't want to, but
no, just one day at a time, man. One day at a time.
All right. My roof for got a big family weekend coming up, but I've also got a lot of football coming up as well. 2 games this week in the high school sports world for me. I've got Thursday night high school football with the Battle of the LCs, Luxembourg Casco at Little Chute. So fun game that night, and then get to do it all over again up in Sturgeon Bay on Friday night. Southern Door taking on Sturgeon Bay Friday night. So looking forward to 2 high school football games this week that I get to be on the air for. Color commentary Thursday, play-by-play Friday. Gonna be a lot of talking.
Yeah.
So, regardless, it's that time of the year. High school football playoffs are only a couple of weeks away. 3 games left on the season.
Yeah, it's crazy how fast that goes, isn't it?
It is, and the weather's starting to. It's really the weather's turning. It's one of the best times of the year, if you ask me. So
one more day.
Said, for Sean, Shauna, Justin, Rams, who aren't here, I'm Eric. That's Dylan. Episode 161 is in the books. We are out of here. See ya.
Peace.